Hello everyone, welcome back to another Transformers review. Now this is the little sort of surprise Transformers review that I said about in my last haul vid, from something I've actually managed to pick up, which I've been dying to get hold of. Yeah, sort of been a little bit of a wait because it had to come from the States. Now without further ado, I shall show you something that I've been waiting to get the right part for. I've managed to pick up the last part of the G2 Combaticons, so I've managed to find Onslaught. Now the difference between him and obviously the G1 is obviously colour scheme is way freakier, in the fact he's got bright yellow and purple camouflage. Another thing to mention which is very different from the G1 is the fact that he's got a hole in the top of the double cannon so that you can fit his launcher, which I've managed to pick up the missile for as well. So although I had the missile launcher, kind of a bit lacking without the missile. Now I will fire it off. This thing is possibly one of the most powerful of the sort of G1, G2 missiles that I've come across. Whether it didn't have a lot of use, but I will put my hand there to try and catch this thing. If it will release, it's going to play ball. There you go. It's that quick. That caught me off guard how quick it goes. It's got quite a lot of power to it. I'll try again. But it literally beats your hands down before you can react. So that's quite a fair old thing. Probably why you don't see many of them up for sale. Because I'd imagine a lot of them went missing quite easily. But good little addition. Like I say, moulding difference is the fact they've put a hole in the top of the gun there for it. A strange thing with this part as well is the fact that where I've obviously got Onslaught, I shall go through and show you the combination mode for the G2 Bruticus. I've already got the other guys ready because I picked those up a while back and they're all ready in their modes to be transformed into the limbs. I'll quickly go through his transformation, but the point I was going to make with the rocket launcher, although it is designed for this figure and it is specific to him, although there is a recolour of that for Jazz as well from the G2 line, it doesn't actually hold in his fist very well. Now if I transform him to his basic robot mode, there's you. There you go, click them out. There is your basic Onslaught. Very nice, exactly the same other than the hole in the other gun as the G1. You've got the yellow shield I already had, which fortunately this guy didn't actually come with, so I didn't double up on that part, so that was great. So there he is with his chest shield, which blends in, so he kind of looks like a huge banana of a transformer because he's just mainly all yellow apart from a little bit of purple on the sides. In that mode, as with the G1, he's got his purple large gun, which is fine and fits in exactly as it did on the G1. But when you get to this one, although it does go in his fist, it's as floppy as you like, and if you turn it that way it will literally just fall out. So I'm not quite sure where they were going with the moulding on that they didn't make that pin big enough for his fist. So a strange one indeed. This guy actually came with another one of these, so I've actually got two. So got two exactly the same, and they're both exactly the same, both loose in there, so I have no idea what was going on there with the moulding process, but let's stick with that one. Now the best thing to do with this, because obviously you can't hold it properly, is to stick it back in that hole, which is nice and firm, and leave it on the back out of the way, and it just becomes another cannon on his back. Now like I say, Onslaught is exactly the same other than a recolour with the G1, although I do love like the little touches where he's got the Onslaught on the sticker, which they tended to do different bits like that on the G2 line, putting the names on. And of course if I bring that in, let that focus, if it's going to play ball with me, It's not getting great focus, but it will just about show. There you go, just for a split second, there you go, that it's got the G2 Decepticon logo. If you are buying one of these guys, be very careful, because there is an oversized knockoff which is exactly the same colour scheme, which is floating around out there on the interweb, and I mean it is, I think, possibly twice the size, which would make a great combiner, but if you're trying to combine these guys it'd be absolutely useless for you. Now I nearly went down that road myself by mistake and nearly got one, where I saw one going cheap and I thought, oh, G2 Bruticus, you know, I can finish him off. Didn't have all the combiner parts with it, so I thought, oh well, I might have to pick them up separate. But it was only the fact that on, I believe it was on the legs and possibly on the upper arms, there was some weird stickers, and I thought they don't look quite right. So I did a little bit of a Google search, and it is, like I say, it's like a knockoff that's oversized. So in its sense quite good, but no good if you want to do a combiner, unless of course you can manage to find all the knockoff combiner individual ones as well and then make a huge Bruticus. So it is worth paying a little bit of attention. The real difference, what points that out, is the fact if this guy's got the Onslaught sticker on the side, that does denote that it's the right one, if there's nothing in scale to show you how big he is anyway. Anyway, getting back to Onslaught himself and then Bruticus. That's Onslaught finished off. You pop off all of these bits, push his fists back in, flip these around. If you've seen my Combaticon review, you know exactly what's coming. You fold his legs up, exactly the same as a G1. Differences to the G1, again, you've got a recolor head, so it's black and silver with red eyes. Similar, I think, to one of the RID or like Ruination sets. Possibly you could have a stand-in if you were short head, so not bad anyway. Quite nice to have a little recolor. And it kind of works well. Having the black is quite a good contrast with the yellow. I don't think the silver would have worked. Next piece is his chest piece, which again is that sort of weird jet part. Again, they've recoloured it with black plastic, just plain black on the back, but then it's been purple camouflaged on the front. So again, quite nice, adds more colour to him, breaks up all that yellow a bit more. So that's him ready for his combine mode. I've managed to pick up some weapons, but not all, for the rest of the combiners. Swindle is exactly the same guns, so you got the small and black one, exactly the same as the G1. This is my G1 little gun. I haven't picked that one up yet, but it's a perfect stand-in. This is the correct one again for the G2 Brawl, G2 Swindle, sorry. So he's exactly right anyway, so you can pick up G1 or G2 on this one. They're identical. I won't bother showing you it in vehicle mode because it's exactly the same to look at. He's ready with the G2 Bruticus foot, so he becomes the right leg. One thing to note, even though this is the right bot and the right foot, it's not a good fit on the peg. It is tight, and I don't really obviously want to force it too much. I don't want to break either of these, so it doesn't go all the way in, but strangely enough it doesn't actually affect him standing, so it's a little bit weird, but it sort of works. So we'll pop him in first. Field play ball. Always be quite careful putting the heads in, because obviously you don't want to snap the head off your figure and then have one trapped inside the leg of another as well. The next one is Brawl. Haven't managed to track down his proper weapons, but they are identical to the G1s, so you'd end up with the small gun and the larger gun, but they'd be in purple. Again, I've already fit his foot on just to save a bit of time for the review. And again, you just wiggle that and pop that in, so then he's got his legs, so looking a lot better. And I'll go with Blast Off next. Again, I've already fit his fist in, that goes in the rocket engine. These are not the proper guns for Blast Off. Now these are Ruination ones, the slightly grey off-white ones. They still work with him. Obviously eventually if I pick up some really bone white proper guns from him, I'll put them on, but as you can see it sort of works. It's almost white enough to sort of blend in and sort of go with it. Differences on moulding, and this is another one. The gun, which is a smaller gun, again this is from that same set, so it's the same colour, is exactly the same as the G1. These are technically exactly the same as the G1. The peg on there fits perfectly fine, as does the small peg for the engine nozzles on the back, so you can store them and display them in that way for its shuttle mode. But the socket where it's onto the wings, now at the moment they're held on there firm and look fine, but I've had to put a little bit of blue tack inside. They are loose, so I'm guessing again as the later mouldings came through with ruination and stuff like that, the tolerances changed and they had to enlarge the hole on that, so that doesn't actually stay on unless you help it with a little bit of blue tack just to hold them in place. So that's one little unusual quirk between them. And the next one of course is Vortex. Now again, Vortex, I've gone down the route of getting Ruinations ones because I couldn't easily pick up the purple guns, which these would be. I went for the full set of Ruinations guns, so again it blends in. Now these fit exactly the same as the G1, fit perfectly wonderfully on this. The small gun, where you've got the hole there which pegs onto the effectively the fist, Vortex in robot mode, does not fit. That again is too loose, so you can put it on the peg and then push his arm against his side and he will hold it, but he obviously can't put his arm out straight. Again, you'd have to put a little bit of blue tack in that to help hold it in position. It does still fit perfectly well in the front of the helicopter mode though, so it's sort of there, but there's obviously very slight tolerance differences on these. Other than that, everything else is the same. I did track down a set of G1 blades for him, so the only difference is of course the bottom of the peg where that goes in. Again, slightly loose, so I've put a little bit of blue tack in there, but the only difference again would be that that piece inside the peg would be a purple colour to match this, whereas it's the old sort of greeny colour. It doesn't really affect it, you don't really even see that when it's in there, and the blades are exactly the same, so it wasn't worth trying to hunt down an exact G2 set of blades for him. So anyway, I fitted the G2 Bruticus fist, and like I say, other than the gun colours, they should be purple, being red, which I kind of think actually is a better contrast with it, rather than it all blending in. That's him sorted out, and he can be displayed like so, and that's pretty much it. Obviously you can put in G2 Bruticus gun, which fits in lovely. Now I have seen, and I've struggled in various different combinations, I have seen a way that people have been combining the weapons. Now I never even knew that as a kid, that you could combine Bruticus's guns to form just a larger gun. It's a weird sort of thing. I have been fiddling around with it, and I think I've come up with a way where I can use all of the loose bits. It's not that stable, and you have to give us a minute to, so I'll have to go through it. Taking Brawl's guns, you can slide his small gun on the front. That effectively gets a shot of those for the minute. Taking Swindle's larger gun, you can take Blastoff's smaller gun and push the side post into the hole on the side, so that holds on there. That small post, what's then left on Blastoff's guns, fits in the hole on the side of Vortex's gun, which probably works better in this mode because of the fact that they're both Ruination weapons. May not have worked if one of them had been G1. From that point, and I'm now getting to the point where I'm trying to remember how I did this, because it was a little bit trial and error for quite a while to try and get things to fit. Oh, and that's the other thing, they don't stay together that great if you move it about too much. That in a sense will then peg on to the main gun. I'll leave that off for a minute. with this you can, now if I remember correctly, I managed to get that to peg into somewhere on here. Again, this is why I should have really done that the other way around and shown you it all combined. I did find out though that the shield will push in on the back on Brawl's gun and stay there in that back slot if it would play ball. Let's see if I can get that to do it again. There you go, like that way round. It will stay in there. Now with that, and I'm desperately trying to remember how I've done this. Oh yeah, I've used the post on Brawl's smaller gun to combine it onto the side of his larger gun. I've then combined this other set on, this is where it gets very confusing, combined that onto there. Oh, I think I remember what I did now, and I put that post in Blastoff's gun like that. So you end up with a very weird, I'll admit myself, very weird combined gun mode. Now the only way I can think to do it is to put it in on this side if there's enough tolerance, because I haven't actually tried it on the figure yet and it don't work. Annoying or what? With a bit of playing about, let's see if I can get it to go. It is a royal pig, for want of a better term, of a thing to do. Let's see, yes, just about. They're not necessarily that straight, don't mock me on that, but oh no, we've lost one. Oh, if I can get that together without it coming off. No. This is what I love about toys. You can fiddle around with them for ages and then it'll just fall apart and mock you. There you go. So you can actually combine every single part, accessory and weapon together. Now I never knew that as a kid, and to be brutally honest, I don't think I'd have had the patience to bother doing that in the past. But yeah, at least it keeps everything together until you knock it on a shelf and then it'll all fall everywhere and you'll be swearing. But it sort of works. But as much as some of these bits aren't the original proper ones, like I say, Brawl's weapons should be purple, the same as the main gun, stuff like that. It does at least give me a way that I can at least try it all and at least show you it all. I mean, when I display it, I won't obviously bother with all the guns like that. I'll just keep them safe somewhere. But I just love the fact that I've managed to find a G2 Combaticon set. Not even a set up until a few years back that I even knew existed, because I never saw any of these guys when I would have been, what's this, sort of more late 80s, 90s, so what have I been in, probably mid 20s then, or getting around that sort of point. So yeah, hold on, let's try and think. 90, I'd have been about 18, let's say, if it was 90s. The beginning of the 90s, 18, 19 sort of age. So I'd kind of gone off picking up Transformers as a sort of thing at that point. So like I say, never knew these guys existed. And in some ways I sort of missed out, but I'm really chuffed now because it has given me a set that is totally fresh, although it's exactly the same mouldings within a slight tolerance differences, to actually sort of pick up. In that sense, it's that sort of reminiscing thing. It's hunting down a combiner, even though I've already technically got this combiner. Being that it's such a different recolour, it really does feel like a different character, which is a strange thing to say when it's just a plastic toy, but so different in the fact with all the colours, and obviously slightly different with launcher and that as well. But yeah, love finding it, and I've got to say, absolutely chuffed with it. So he'll go really fantastically in with my G2 line, which if you spy over his left shoulder, there could be a review of something else coming up soon. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again for another review or haul vid, and I'll see you again. Thanks.